Connor, what's going on with quartz? There, what's happening?
Yeah. So, Vinny, you mentioned when you were reading off all the people they were giving money to, Taiwan was on the list.
Yes.
I'll just off the top of your head, do you remember why Taiwan is so important to the U.S.?
Teacher?
Go ahead, go.
Semiconductors.
Yes, because Taiwan basically it's the only place on Earth making semiconductors for the entire global tech sector. Turns out, North Carolina is also a critical stopping point in that entire industry. While there's all the destruction in Asheville and Chimney Rock, which have been basically wiped off the face of the earth right now, there is also a lot of attention being turned to the tiny town of Spruce Pine, North Carolina. It's buried up in the Appalachian Mountains. It's got a population of about 2,000 people. It was a railroad town founded in the early 1900s. Tiny little speck of a city. But it is home to the largest deposit of high-purity quartz on the planet. It's America's only deposit of this, and one of the largest known on the planet. If we can go to the next slide here, I'll show you the map. This is where it is. Just right there, middle of nowhere.
Okay.
It's not close to anything. But the reason this place is so important to global semiconductor manufacturing is the quartz is harvested out of the mine, where the crystal is then ground up into sand that is used to turn into glass to make crucibles for molten silicon, which is used in circuit board manufacturing. It's because it's able to withstand high heat, and also because it is clean. It's able to be purified down to like the atomic level. And I know this is very technical, and if you're not interested in circuit board manufacturing, you might
Rob just fell asleep. Rob is sleeping.
Well, I'm creating semiconductors.
Yeah. But it's extremely important because this one obscure little thing, tiny town where they're pulling rocks out of a mine, is the backbone of the entire semiconductor industry. You cannot make circuit boards and semiconductors without these crucibles to refine the silicon to develop them. You can use less pure quartz, but it takes way longer and is infinitely more expensive. So I pulled the stats here. I have this report at vt.com if you're interested in reading about it. But basically what it means is that Spruce Pine supplies 70% of the world's naturally occurring high-purity quartz.
Can we put this up? Can we put this up so they can see it?
Throw that up if you want to read along with that. They produce 70% of the world's naturally occurring high-purity quartz, which places the town securely at the center of a $500 billion microchip industry that supports the $3 trillion global tech sector. In the storm, this town received over 2 feet of rain, washed away roads, knocked out public utilities, and it closed the 2 refining facilities where the quartz is processed. So there's been no information on when these things will reopen. The 2 companies put out statements, hey, right now we're concerned about the safety of our employees. We're trying to, assess damage. We're not going to reopen until their personnel is secure, which is, good for them. It's nice to see a company that's actually not, just
saying the hell with everybody. Yeah. We're trying to make our money.
Exactly. But with no reopening date on these facilities, what it means is the global supply of quartz is going to quickly dry up. The short term, they're not expecting a doomsday scenario if it's, a couple weeks at most. Most places that do the refining have a supply. If it goes on for more than a few weeks, though, it will start to dry up, and there won't be anything left to use for processing more semiconductors, which will cause the supply of electronics to drop, the cost of everyday goods to shoot up at the same time. And this is on top of the port strike that just ended in a tentative agreement. But costs could skyrocket from this. And this is really the problem of when our government turns its back on us, when it abandons the people of these areas to sort out their own problems and says, we're not coming to help you. This has global implications, and they're completely ignoring it. No big media outlets have talked about this except for, I think, Bloomberg about 2 days ago. So we're screwed if they don't help fix this.
What are semiconductors used for the most?
Basically every electronic.
Everything.
Your phone, your computer, your appliances. They're in everything has a computer chip in it.
So you're saying it's bad for the production of semiconductors because the area is being damaged?
Yes.
I think people are looking at it the opposite way, too. They're saying that perhaps this area being damaged helps the people who want to mine for, because the people who of this community didn't want to allow the mining that would be needed to take place to get this quartz and all that. But now they don't have flood insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these people aren't going to be able to keep their properties. It's going to be bought cheaply, and potentially the companies that want to do this mining are going to be able to do it much easier instead of having to, like, they could do eminent domain now too. Now they have to have a federal emergency situation there.
Yeah, and that's entirely possible.
That is one of the theories floating around, that whether or not this was directed weather or manipulated weather.
That's what Brandon's going to
Yeah, we're going to get into that. But no, I would have gone the other way entirely and just said, well, they're going to go look for some overseas mine right now, and they'll go find something in Africa.
The other deposits that exist are in India and Brazil, but they are way smaller, and it's hard to get things out of India and Brazil. So that's why so much of it has come from this one place in North Carolina. Experts, continue to say, it's a huge problem to have everything with this one tiny choke point, but there's not much they can do about it. They need it as a natural resource. So to Brandon's point, if it's allowed where they're able to, push people out and take the land and use it as like a national security issue, I'm sure that could be a thing. But it shows how interconnected everything is. This tiny town of 2,000 people that's not on anybody's radar is basically sustaining the global tech sector right now. And nobody anticipated what would happen if this went offline. In the early 2000s, there was a fire that made the mines close for a couple days. There was some forest fire came through the area, and it rippled through the economy for months after that. And that was before the huge demand for semiconductors, because personal computing devices hadn't quite taken off the way they had or have by now. So when they continue to say, oh, FEMA doesn't have any more resources to give, here's your $750, we're going to have to bulldoze the town, everything's going to be shut down for, unknown lengths of time. It shows they're not thinking about what's going to happen beyond that.
They don't care. They don't
care about
they literally
that
don't care.
until it comes up where suddenly their pocketbooks are
Well,
being
the government is a make-work project where whenever they fail at doing their job, they give themselves more powers to rectify the emergency that was created through their incompetence. You get Elon Musk in an administration, and someone with business experience, practical technological experience, you might anticipate some of these problems and actually protect against them instead of always being reactive and then giving more power to the very people whose neglect led to the problem in the first place.
Yeah, Rob, what are you going to say?
I was going to talk about the semiconductor chips, but I think we've moved on to, because he proved the point. My whole thing was when I totaled my Tesla, and because there was a problem with getting the chips made during COVID.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Of course.
So the value of my car skyrocketed because there was such a demand for Teslas, but I totaled it. So I ended up, I probably shouldn't say this. But I ended up making money by totaling the car because they had to value the car at the time that the car was totaled at the market rate of the value, and the value had skyrocketed because of the lack of chips and the semiconductor issues due to COVID.
People who had their cars on leases with buyback options at the end of the lease, the companies were trying to screw them and find defaults out of the leases so they could take the cars back because they were worth more than the buyback in the lease.
So I feel terrible because there have been 2 times, because I did the same thing during COVID. COVID lasted a while. During COVID was when I sold my Nissan Altima for $7,000 more than what it was actually worth. It was the only 2 times in my life where I flipped or made money from having a used car. All of a sudden I was like, oh, I should get into the used car salesman business. I started watching all these TikTok videos, but now I'm here with you guys.
They wanted, before I was moving here, all that was happening, they wanted to buy my 2019 Toyota Corolla with the CarMax, and the guy's like, well, you only have a couple little miles because the pandemic, I didn't drive it at all. He's like, dude, they want to give me like 9,000 more than my car, and I was like, I got to move to Florida. I needed a freaking car, so I didn't do it.
I feel bad. All these people are suffering, and I'm like, I made off
And Vinny,
pretty well.
you asked like what are the semiconductors in, and it's everything. But during COVID, when they couldn't get anything out of Taiwan, cars couldn't put seat warmers, onboard computers, phone manufacturing, computer manufacturing. Like, it all hinges on these little choke points. The reason we're pouring so much money into Taiwan right now is because if China invades, they get to control the entire global semiconductor market.
Yeah, so
And
it's
like
about money.
that makes them the most powerful supplier on the planet.
Yeah, it's about money. It's not about giving a shit about the people in Taiwan. They like, again, they don't care if anybody lives or dies. It's about money, and it's about them controlling that money. And China, I mean, bro, that's a whole nother freaking...
And that's why I really wanted to promote this story, because nobody's talking about it. It's being completely ignored by most media outlets. But if we can get, attention on it, maybe there's a chance somebody will step in and actually help out with it, because it proves this is the problem that could spiral out into a whole global issue.
It will certainly lend some more credibility to the fears that people have that the federal government's going to come in and just claim all of the land, not just for the quartz up in, what was the name of the town?
Spruce Pine.
Spruce Pine, but for the lithium that deposits that people believe is leading to this type of nationalization of private property.
Which